just to let you know, the recording has now begun. So you should be able to see yourself, probably most disconcertingly, and I'm going to skip back over to the presentation. So as far as today, we are going to focus on Google Sites, as I've said, and previous webinars have looked at, for instance, use of Google Classroom and Hangout Meets. We've got some future ones coming up on Google Forms. We have webinars recorded and they're available on our YouTube channel. So if you know you've missed them and you want to go back and see things like Google Classroom, just let us know and we can send you the links over and you can watch those. Also, Google often has a lot of information available. We'll come on to how to access that information a little bit, but if you are making notes furiously during this presentation, by all means do, if that's the way you work and that's the best thing for you. At the same time, we'll refer you to resources. So if you're thinking, oh no, Martin, you're talking too fast or you're giving me too much information, don't worry, don't panic. There's guides that will direct you to that you can pick up, get all of the information I'm about to show you. You can revisit it in your own time. There'll also be videos, there'll be how-to guides that go alongside. So please don't worry that it's going to be too much to take on board today. We have also the luxury that most of what we're going to show you is available on any device. So whether you're going to use a web browser on a computer or you've got a Chromebook, or you're going to use a tablet or a mobile phone, there could be specific apps, but with Google Sites, it's best accessed in a web browser, but it's available on any of them. So you just log into Google and G Suite is best accessed on the Google Chrome web browser because it's built for that by Google. And then you can happily do everything inside a tab on the web browser. You don't necessarily have to have anything installed on your computer. Something that I've mentioned with all the Google webinars, and I'm going to reinforce again today, is Teach from Home. Teach from Home was launched in response to the COVID-19 crisis and us all having to work from home and adjust to this weird reality that we find ourselves in. But it's an amazing resource. So if I click on it, it will launch up in my web browser. Teach from Home is a freely open website and you can get to it yourself. If you want to get it in a different language, directing parents to it, is now available to download as a guide or view online as a guide in all these different languages, and it's expanding every single day. So if you've got EAL parents or EAL children that need to access these, you can make sure that they can go online and they can get it in their native language. They don't have to worry about trying to interpret this in another language. You can download as a PDF here if you want to take it offline. So the top settings to view the website, here's the download to get a PDF copy. So if you want to take it offline, they maybe haven't got a good internet connection, they just want to read it afterwards, it's there. You might also want to do yourself. Here is Dean, and Dean has got great inspiration as far as using G Suite is concerned. Really good in core person in Google Education, someone to watch and follow on Twitter. But down here, more interestingly, is the bit that is going to be most used to you. So we've already covered things like Hangout Meets, and we've also covered Classroom. If you want to go back and you want to look at the tutorials for those, you just click the button. But today we're going to focus on sites. If you want to go and revisit anything I'm about to cover, you click the tutorial button and up will come the tutorial. And all you do is hit let's get started, and it'll take you through 8 bite-sized lessons about how to build your sites, and it will cover everything that I'm about to show you, so you can revisit those. If you want to also get quickly to it, if you hit open, it will take you straight into the sites that you've got. So that's the place to go and get the support materials today. I'll also mention that again for anyone who's just joining the call halfway through, because we will have people joining us. But don't need to write anything down, and that's up to date. And if something new happens or they change the way it works, these guides are updated. So it's a great place to go. It's also a great place to direct other people in your school as members of staff, as I've said, pupils or parents, because it isn't always easy to get people engaged with new resources and new ways of working. So if I go back to my presentation and I move down, we are going to go through Google Sites. So the impact of Google Sites is that it will improve communication in your school. Now, there will be a question in your head about, well, what use of Google Sites over Google Classroom? Google Classroom is primarily focused on delivering teaching and learning. And if you want to know more about that, as I said, the previous webinar will have information also on the Teach from Home page as well. But you may want to provide information in more of a notice board way or more of a website type format, and that's where Google Sites comes in. So also be a way to organize notice boards to get parents engaged, so they don't have to log in the classroom. They just go to Google Site and they can check the information, or they could check a calendar, and we'll go through how to build all of that in just a bit. So slightly different in the way that you target the use. I would say it's an addition to Classroom. It's not a replacement for Google Classroom. So with Google Sites, you can create sites to be main source information. It could be during school closure, like the situation we find ourselves in now. You can embed calendars from Google Calendars that you maybe have from Google Classroom, so you don't have to go into the classroom to look something up. You can put photos in, media in. You can also make things more memorable, so you could have a link to your Google site from your classroom. We're going to go through all of those areas there during the presentation. Some of them we'll focus on in more depth, but one thing I will say is that we're only going to scratch the surface of what Google Sites can do, because this is very much meant to be an introductory session. So if you are already somebody who has dipped your toe into Google Sites, you may know some of the stuff that we're going to cover today. There may be the odd nugget that you haven't used yet. But if you want to get into the more advanced use, then going in here to the Teach from Home resources and then looking up through some of these lessons, the more detailed guides, I would advise you to do that. I'm happy to also take questions at the end of the session. So as far as other considerations, you need to think about, well, could I use Google Sites for anything else? Well, one way that I've seen few schools do this is automated password resets. So you can set up a Google site. So if pupils get locked out of their accounts and they're using G Suite, not Office 365, but G Suite, they could go online and they could get their password reset linked to G Suite. Again, that's a pretty advanced feature, but there is a guide online that you can get to do that. You could also make it easy to link to tools that the school might use. So that might be other platforms, such as if you want them to go to, let's say, Purple Mash, or MyMaths or iExcel, you could put shortcuts on there. It could link back to pages on the main school website as well. So it's another way to channel them in, but give them one quick, simple, single place to visit to get links to all these multiple other places. You could also link to documents in your Drive, and it could be that they could be available offline as well. So without any further delay, I'm going to jump out of the presentation and we're going to go across over to the sites myself. So when you want to get to Google Sites, you go to Google Apps, which is up here on the top corner. You need to be signed into Google first, which you just open up a tab on your web browser. I'm in what's called an incognito session, so yours will look right, and you just go Google login. Or if you are on a Chromebook, it will just be there because you'll have logged into the Chromebook anyway. If you're on a Windows computer or a Mac, that's what you'll do. Log into Google, and then you can just log in through there. And I'm already in, so it says welcome Martin Long, but you would get to a login page. You put in your G Suite email address and your G Suite password. So as I said at the beginning of this, if you're Office 365 and your school doesn't have a G Suite, you're going to need to get G Suite for Education set up before you can log in and use this. If you are a Google school, you just put in your normal school Gmail address and your password that you would normally put in, and it will come in. When you get there, up in the app launcher in the top corner, you want to get to Sites. Sites is the icon there. Sometimes I've pinned mine to the top because I use it quite frequently, so you can drag these around. But down here, it could be sat in the More Apps section. You won't have all of the apps that I've got because I'm an administrator, so you won't have things like the admin console, but you might have some of them. In Sites might be lingering down there, so just have a scroll down to find it. So you click on Sites, and it will take you to this page. If you've not built one before, there'll just be a plus button at the bottom. If you've been building sites such as I've got here, you'll have the last built site, and they just stack up as thumbnails along the side. So you can have more than one site. And depending on the purpose or whether you're going to build for an individual subject, you're going to build whole school, you might have multiple sites, or you might just have one site. And for today's purpose, I'm just going to use the single site. So if I click that, it will take me into my site, and depending on your broadband speed at home, that might take a little bit. And you come into what is a developed site for the purpose of what I'm doing today. I am going to talk you through how I've built these different sections and how I've got them. If it's something you're going to be doing for the first time, you go to Sites Home, and then you're going to build your site and it will come in as a new one. So you press the plus down here, in it will come, and what you'll be presented with the first time will look a bit like this. It's pretty much a blank page. So just to familiarize you with the interface that you're presented with, you always see on the left hand side here the bit of the site that you're editing. Over here on the right hand side, you've got the tools to edit the site. So insert is the tab that's underlined, and that's the one you've selected so far. So you can insert things into the page you are on your site. So you can pop text boxes in for type text. Images are obvious. You can link out to documents that are stored in your Google Drive if you're a Google school, or you can embed links from other websites, areas of G Suite. Down here, you can add layouts, and we'll look at how you use layouts, but you've also got other options to build your page or pages in your sites. And we'll come on to how to create new pages in just a bit. So it's pretty much up to you about what you want to put onto different pages. And I'll go through how to use those in our demo site in just a moment. Pages themselves are here. So you've got by default a home page. If you want to add another page, you press a plus. I'm going to call my new page subjects. I press done. If I want to get to the advanced options, they're down there. So you can have things like custom paths if you've got already a URL or a path you want it to follow, but most people won't. Press done, and then in there is subject. So all of a sudden now I've got my home page and I've got my subject page. If I want to get to my home page, there's a link for it at the top. And if I want to get to my subjects, they're here. You can change the images. You can use images that are in stock to change what the header looks like. So for my subjects, I think I'll have this lovely purple pattern. I press select and then it's applied, but my home page will be untouched. That's still the default. If I want to edit the text at any point, I can click on there and I've got my options for formatting. I could also make a link to the title there, subject, so that if someone presses the word subjects, it takes them out to another website or a picture or an external resource, or I can get rid of it altogether by pressing delete. I can create sub pages. So under my subjects, if I wanted to list, for instance, English and maths, I have an add sub page. So in here, I might have English. It's done. And you can see that it's now nested under subjects. I want to have another one. So I click add sub page, add maths, I press done. And then all of a sudden I've got a drop down here where I can start to navigate to my different parts of the subject page. So it works a bit like, if any of you have ever built websites before, it works like a website builder, but it's a simplified version. So you don't have to worry about coding. You don't have to worry about scripts. It's all done in a very visual interface. You can also quickly change the theme of your Google site. So by default, it's on simple. But if I wanted to have maybe level, implement that there, and then you could change color. So I want to have actually a reddy, pinky tinge to that. Well, there you go. I can change the font style. So I'd like the font to be narrow, and that moves the fonts over. So I can move between these different pre-formatted themes. You are stuck with the themes that you have, but there's quite a bit of customization within those themes. So it gives you the scope to alter your site around. I'm going to go back over to my site. So if you want to navigate between the sites you're building, you press the button up in the top left-hand corner. And now I'll be able to see, there is the one that I was just doing as a demo. I haven't given it a title yet, but here is my test site. If I turn it on, I'm going to go back in. So once you're in there, on my site, I've been a little bit more creative. I've got my home page, I've got learning subjects, and there are my learning subjects. I've got class pages, because what I might not have on my school website is the ability to have class pages. So I might want to, in Google Classroom, direct the pupils in the classroom to maybe an early years class page, which parents can engage with, or a year one class page. So I can have those pages which act like a notice board for my class, and they are linked to my classroom, but they're not in my classroom. I could also have contact details, because very often people want to get contact details quite quickly. So you can see there I've uploaded an external picture. Here, because it's linked to turn it on, I've created a section. I'll show you how to do it in a moment, and I've linked out to Google Maps. So if you wanted to put in a section, you stay on insert, you go down here. So I think I put in collapsible text, I believe. I put that in there. So I've got my title. I got my, which I can edit. So I can put test. I can put then type here. It goes in. And I've got all my normal formatting options. When I click out, it's there. Can uncollapse it. You've also got a floating button that will come up when you click on a window. So whatever you're interfacing with will have a blue line around it. And then you get your editing wheel that comes up in the middle. Here I put a map in. So if I get rid of that, I decide I don't want an item. I click on it. I can press the delete button, or you can press delete on your keyboard. And then if I wanted to insert a map, for instance, I go down here to map. I click map. I type in the location I have. So we're based for our main office in Whitney, UK. It comes up with Whitney, UK. We press select, and then the map goes in underneath. So if you wanted to do that, and then you can put another text box underneath of the school phone numbers or whatever else you like to do. Maybe it's class details you're going to focus on there. So how to get support for distance learning. So the distance learning itself might be the person who's in charge of coordinating distance learning for the class or for the school. So it can be built however you want. You're pretty much got a blank canvas when you come to the pages. So if I went back to my home page, you click on it and it takes you back in. If I then said, let's say when I get my people arriving at my homepage, I'd like a carousel of what we've been up to. It's going to be a showcase of what the school's doing. So you've got image carousel there. You press plus. You can either select an image from your Google Drive if you're a G Suite school, or you can press upload image. And then it will look to a folder on your drive. So I've got 3 images there already prepped for what I've been doing in my school. I'm just going to press open. I'm going to select them all together instead of having to upload them individually. They will upload into the image carousel. It might take a few minutes or seconds, I should say, depending on the speed of your connection. Press insert, and then there's a carousel that you can slide across. Well, that's all well and good, but I want to have something that gets people in and gets people having information about my school. So I'm now going to say, welcome to our school. For distance learning. Please select your class page. And it can be whatever you like it to be, really. Just giving you a flavor of what you can do. You can resize that if you want to, so you can grab the sides, you can move that in, you can move that around, you can pick it up and you can put it up here on the side. So it's not something that's hiding down the bottom. If you wanted to then make it easy for people to obviously know where the contacts are, because if they've scrolled down, they might not see the contact at the bar at the top. You can scroll down and you've got things like buttons. So if you click button, so the name of the button is going to be contact us. I'm going to link it to another section of my website. So I'm going to scroll down where I created the contacts page. I just press insert. It's a bit squashed, so I'm going to grab the section on the side, and then it will allow people that are looking at the carousel to quickly go to the contact us page that we've already made, get a bit more information about the school there. You can have it so it doesn't collapse if you want to turn off the collapse feature, so it's a static box. That means it doesn't fold away, so it's there and it's not need to. Well, you might be going, that's all well and good and it's building, but I'm still not really sure how that looks in reality. So up here in the top bar, you've got a preview option. If you press preview, it will allow you to see what it looks like on different devices. So this is a preview for what it would look like if you're looking on a website, on a browser, on a desktop computer, or a laptop, or a Chromebook, or an Apple Mac. If you're viewing it on a tablet, you press that, and this is what it now looks like inside a tablet. So I might go, oh, okay, that formatting's a bit off. I need to make that text box a bit wider so it doesn't crop the D and stick it down the bottom on a tablet. And also what it might look on a mobile phone. So the website or the site app in Google takes care of the scaling for you. You haven't got to worry about that. It's almost taken care of for you. And all you need to do is just go in and check what it looks like. If you are thinking, well, I need to change that, I press the cross to come out of preview mode. I'm back here in edit mode. Okay, I know I need to make that a little bit wider for the scaling on the tablet. So I'm going to drag that across to make that a bit wider. And that should account for the cropping on the tablet one. So it's quite quick and easy and accessible to start to build your pages. You can see over here, if I go back to pages, I've decided I'll build my learning subjects. There are my learning subjects. Here are my class pages, and there are my sub pages underneath. And I just built one contacts page. There's no limit to the amount of times that you can add a new page link in there. I would say don't build too many at the top, or they start to disappear off the end and you'll get what's called a collapsed menu. Less is more. So if you can have a shallow menu at the top, you need to change your menu at the top. You can click on it, and I've just called mine Turn It On School. Where I've inserted the Turn It On logo is there, edit logo, so you can get your school logo in. You can have the name of your school there. The name of your website is Distance Learning, because I've used that for the time of having distance learning education in COVID-19, and we're trying to reach parents and pupils. But you don't have to have it called Distance Learning. You can choose what the site's called, and then the name there can be different to the name of the site. Themes I've already covered, but you've got the option in there to change your fonts and your sites. So I've selected one site with one type of font with Envision, but if I decide that doesn't work, or maybe I have a feedback that bold was a bit thin and needs to be wider because it can't be seen, I could go for modern, which gives me a thicker font style. And then here I've got the different colors, but you can also then click on it and change other colors as well. So themes are quite minimal in the options. Pages are quite obvious. Insert is where you've got more content. So if I went to a class page, forget the early years, for instance, I've already created there a welcome. I've got my box. I've got a single picture. If I want to do something similar, I could go to my year one page. Here's my year one. The header is what it is. You can have different types of headers. So I've got what's called a banner. It's more of a narrow. You can get rid of that altogether. So you can have title only. You could also go across to have an extended chunky banner. You could have a cover, so it's just like a cover page, but you have still got the bit underneath, or I'll go back to the banner I had originally, so you can change it. When those little dots come up there, it just means that Google Sites are just adjusting it for you to get the best possible sections for you. Dividers are what they are. They divide up sections you've inserted. So on my early years page, if I wanted to section off my welcome, I could put a divider in. So the divider sits there and it's like a line underneath. And then I can build other content underneath here. If I'm going to pop back to my class pages, and I'm going to go into year one. I know that the use of YouTube is a contentious issue, and we do need to consider safeguarding here. So some schools will say that they are going to sanction the use of YouTube on filtering for staff, but not for pupils. Other schools will say they're going to have no YouTube whatsoever. You need to decide as a school about what your rule is for use of YouTube, but you can have YouTube embedded. So if I clicked YouTube, and I might say I'm going to use the BBC bite-sized lessons that are going on at the moment. I'm going to search for that. And it might come up with BBC Bite Size, and here's a video on time. It's a very short 2-minute video, not that I'm going to be doing time with year one, but I'm going to select it, and it's as quick as that. Then all of a sudden, the time video and how to engage time is there right in the notice page for class pages. Well, I want to put a bit of information with that. So I'm going to put in there class time. I'll make it a bit narrower because I'm going to pop it up alongside. I click on my page. I am going to pop it up there. So I'm going to say, welcome to time. Please try to read the clock in your house. And I'm going to stop the collapsing. I might decide on this one I would like it to be in bold, and then my formatting is there. I could link it so it linked out to another video, or I could have a word link at the end. I can delete it if I want. There are more editing options down there, so you can use code if you're an advanced user. So HTML and things like that can also be embedded. I have at the moment got it collapsing, so I'm just going to click on it, and I can choose it not to collapse, and then it's better. It works there like that. If I decided then on another page, I want to insert a doc or a slide or a sheet, I don't have to go wandering off to my Google Drive over here and try and find what I want. And that's on a separate tab. I can stay in the sites. So if I want to put a Google Doc in because I've got, let's say, a Google Doc, which is a worksheet I want the pupils to pick up, I go to here and I might go into Google Docs. I haven't got one on time, but I'm going to pick up one on lines of symmetry. And I'm going to say, I want to put in that one. I press insert, and then all of a sudden, the doc that I want them to access that's in my drive, imagine this was time and not lines of symmetry, is there. It's on the page. And for the parent or for the pupil, it's not confusing. They can just come in. So when I said at the beginning, this is not a replacement for Classroom, it isn't. But what you might want to do is provide a learning grid summary here. So you may decide, let's choose year 2. And on year 2, I decide I'm going to go to my docs. I actually want to put in here my topic grid for the term. So I'm just going to spread that out. I'm going to make it bigger. But in there is my grid of what I expect the pupils to be getting on with in English, science, art, and DT. And all that I'm going to use this page for on my site is for them to go and look at the learning grid, and the actual content for that, what I want them to do each day, is delivered through Classroom as an assignment, but they have somewhere to go to here. And you could have a link in the stream on Classroom, which takes them out to this website, because the website will have an address, a URL, so they don't have to go looking for that. It's in their stream. But then they come to the site that you've built specifically for their class page, and it doesn't get lost in the stream because it gets pushed down the stream and you lose it. It's here, it's static, it's in the class page. More than that today, as I said, it's pretty much a self-explanatory piece of software. It does take care of itself. Actually, one thing I haven't shown you is layout. So if I decided to go to my learning subjects, let's say I'm going to go into English, you always have a blank page where you can choose the layouts. These are a bit like templates on Google Slides. So if I wanted to have a pre-made template where I press the plus, I can add in a picture here. So it will then want me to upload it or select it from my drive. And I can click on my text to edit. So instead of doing these individual boxes of entering a picture or a carousel and then entering collapsible text, you can use these templates as well. If you decide that that template isn't for you, you can just click on it and delete it. So you click that, press delete, and it's gone. So I might want to then choose this one here. Well, in it comes. Now I've got my 3 picture options there and my text underneath. There are ways of formatting that there. So if I don't want a background, I can have an emphasis background. I could have a color. I can put an image in the background. I could also duplicate it quickly. So if I wanted to copy it because I don't want to have to create it over again, and it's taken quite a while to build it, just duplicate it there, or I can also delete it there. What it gives you on Google Sites are a set of tools that you can use to build a site to your preference and your needs. It doesn't have to be as complex as this. You don't have to have drop-down menus. You might decide all you're going to have is no homepage whatsoever and just the different years or classes along the top. It's a blank canvas, and one of the things you'll need to reflect upon before you start to use it is how you want to build your site, or even if you need a site, because you might decide that Google Classroom is going to be the tool that you're going to use. The final thing I'm going to show you is about getting other people involved or publishing. So up the top in the bar where we previewed what it would look like on different devices, we can also share it with others in our school. So I can then, just like sharing on any other application in Google Docs or Google Sites, you click here, you get the names of your people. So I'm going to select a fictional person in my scenario. Nope, she's not going to come up. I might decide I'm going to select Carol, who's a colleague I work with, turn it on. On the right hand side here, you've got edit rights. If you click it, at the moment, Daryl would have the right to edit the site just like I can, but you might want to limit that so they can just view it and publish it, which means they can't edit it in any way. They can look at it in an editable form, but they can't make changes, and they could publish it to other places, but they can't really change the layout of the content. If you want them to be a true collaborator and create it with you, then give them edit rights. There you tick whether you want them to be notified that they've got the invite to do that. You can send a copy to yourself if you just want for reference to know that you invited that other person, or you can prevent others from publishing if you want them to have edit rights but not publish. You tick that box down the bottom, and then all you do is you hit the send button, and off it goes to the other person that you're inviting to come in and join you on this site creation. They'll get notified, and depending on the permissions you've given them over here, they'll either be able to edit it and create it with you, or they'll be able to share it, and then you'll use it in other areas of the school. So that's the share options there. On the publish, press cancel, and we'll come out of that. Over here on publish, it does what it says on the tin. This is when you've built your site. So when you're making it, no one else can see it. It's private to you. It sits in your Google G Suite. But when you're ready to go public, you are going to publish it. So here is the name of your website address. So make it something easy, memorable. I'm going to call mine Turn It On School Distance Learning. You will get a hyphen in between. You can't have spacing, and there is a limit to characters. So I'm just going to call it distance. Yeah, I've hit my character limit. And then you publish it. So when you're ready, I won't publish it because it will publish it to the web, but when you're ready to publish it, it will publish it out. You'll be able to get a URL, which is the address in the address bar up there, which you can pop into things like Classroom, which is when you can link across. You don't have to give the whole URL to the whole website. You could narrow it down and give the URL or the link to just a class page. So there is the URL that you could put into maybe the year 1 classroom, or if you've got a class name, it could be Oak or Maple. And then that brings them straight into the page that's relevant to them. It doesn't drop them on the home page where they're going to have to navigate their way through, and they could potentially get lost, or there's an excuse not to engage with what you want them to read. As far as today's session is concerned, those are the areas I was going to cover. So if I go back to my presentation, I want to reinforce Teach From Home. The Teach From Home website is your Bible. It's where you get everything I've discovered today, everything I've shared with you today. You scroll down, you go to here. Here is the tutorial for building Google Sites. There is the button that will open Google Sites for your school. If you haven't got Google Sites, you might need to speak to the administrator in your school who deals with IT support and get it enabled for you, but by default, it should be there. Once you've worked your way through those tutorials, so here are your tutorials, what are the sites, how to set them up, all of the options about contents, customizations. All you do is you hit that, let's get started. Here are the videos. It's very visual, so you get your video to go through. You also get text and guides to go with it. Again, those can be changed into different languages too, so you don't need to worry too much. I'm just going to get rid of that because of the broadband connection is struggling. But you've got the support. So don't feel after today's webinar that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this. I almost am overwhelmed with it. You don't need to be. You've got the guides there. I'm going to stop presenting. And what I am going to do is I'm going to look at if there are any questions over there on the side. And nobody's put any questions in the chat. So I'm going to ask you if you now want to unmute your mics and just talk to me. Ask me any questions. If there's anything you want to discuss, anything you want to think about, even just talk it through out loud. If anyone's used it and they've got a good idea or some way that they utilize it in their school. These are community webinars, so please do share with each other. It doesn't have to be just me talking to you. I'm going to take my camera so you can see me, and I'm quite happy to spend the next time, however long it is required, to talk to you about this. Okay, over to you. Oh, silence. Anyone going to be bold? Ellie, have you had any questions sent to you outside the chat that we need to address?
I haven't been sent any questions, Martin, either.
Okay. Oh, we've got one. Staff meetings. Mark, what would you like to know about staff meetings? I'm quite happy to talk about staff meetings. If it's easier instead of typing, Mark, you can just unmute your mic and just talk if you like. I would like to know how to share documents and set it up via a calendar. Okay, we did an entire session on that just before the end of term on the Friday before the Easter holiday. So there's a recording of that. We've got a webinar, But what you would use is Hangout Meets, which is what we're using now. And in Hangout Meets, you could share documents, but also you would use Google Calendars. If I reshare my present now. So as well as this Hangout Meet, where once it's reshared with you, you can add shortcuts to documents in your drives, which will go in here and then appear for everyone else in the chat. You could also go to calendars over here and you can schedule meetings. So when you schedule your meeting, if you want more options, click there. And when you get more options, you can attach documents in advance that you require for the meeting. Or the other way of doing it is to go to your Google Drive. So Google Drive is your My Drive, that's personal to you. But if I wanted to share, for instance, Google training options and questions, click on it once so it goes blue. I press the share link up there, and a bit like I had in Sites, it comes up with a very similar box. I decide whether I'm going to allow people to edit, comment, or just view the document, and I share it to them. But you've also got the option, if I come out of that, you've also got the option in here. You could have shared drives. We haven't enabled any shared drives in this test version, but shared drives are communal drives that you have with other staff in your school. So it could be like a whole school staff drive. And there might be a folder in there called whole staff meetings, and you just put the files in there that you want staff to pick up from the shared drive. So there's lots of ways to do that in answer to your question. But if you want to see a video on it, we can get you the video and send it through to you. The one thing that you've got with Google is that there's lots of separate apps. So you've got Calendars, which is a separate app, and you have to have it in a separate tab. You've got Google Hangout Meets, which is in a separate tab, and you've got Classroom, which is a separate app. Whereas, as you've just pointed out there, in Teams, it's all bundled into one interface. You don't have to navigate between these different apps. It's just the way that Google have scheduled it and built it versus Microsoft Office 365 and Teams. I'm going to stop sharing the screen at the moment. Right, we've got some more questions in there. SharePoint is a nightmare. Yeah, you don't have to use SharePoint. If you can achieve all of what you've just discussed there in Teams, and you could use the Files tab in Teams if you wish to use Teams. If you're doing it in Google, then you've got to use My Drive or Shared Drives. That's the options if you are going to use that. SharePoint is something that's going to be exclusive to Office 365, but very often if you're using Teams in Office 365, it negates the need to have to engage with SharePoint, although the file section of a team is sat on top of SharePoint, but you don't have to engage with that. You can view it within the team if you wish. Have we got any more questions that are going to come in the chat, or anyone else want to unmute a mic and ask? No problem, Mark. Not a problem at all. Good to have you along. I will say hi to Tim. Is that Tim from the London team, as in Tim Hart? Yes. Okay, I will say hi to Tim for you. No problem at all. I'm on a call with him later, so I can say hi to him. Anybody else on the call that wants to ask any questions? I can see Ginny on there. Ginny, we used to work together when I was down in your school, so if you want to unmute, don't be shy. No? Okay. Well, all that remains for me then is to say thank you. We'll stop the recording at that point, but I will linger as you all drop off the call. It's been great to have you along, and we've got more of these webinars coming up.